And speaking of the former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, Kliff Kingsbury today on the campus of ASU. Meant to ask Graham Rossini about that as well, because that's what the Commanders are practicing this week. Forgot all about it. On what he's seen from Kyler, what his relationship is like with Kyler. Here's what Kliff had to say about that.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch him. The end of last year, I thought you could see the confidence getting back in the knee, and he made a bunch of big plays, played really well, and he's played great this season. They're a couple plays away from being undefeated. So you see the speed, the quickness, the competitive nature is there. So it's been great to see. He's a guy I basically banked my entire career on what he would be, and I still believe in it. And it's cool to see him playing as well as he is.
I bank my entire career on the kind of quarterback he would be, says Kliff Kingsbury. The faith that he has in Kyler Murray to be all that for the Arizona Cardinals is you look perplexed by that. Tell me why.
But no, you didn't? Not really. Well, I don't think he did.
I think he's just speaking in generality.
Yeah,
I would bet my career that he's going to be great. I think is what he meant.
That bet is to be determined, but you still got fired anyway. So
yeah, which, by the way, and thank you for accidental brilliance of leading me right into the next Kliff Kingsbury soundbite.
When you think of your time here, what comes to mind? Are you bitter about how it ended, or
no, not at all?
A long time to process it.
I mean, that's why I still got my house here, man. I love it out here. So I will always be grateful to Michael for giving me that opportunity that he did. First fired college coach to ever get that opportunity, and then the guys in that building, I see some of my closest friends, and then the team. You watch those guys play, James Conner, Buddha, they still inspire me. So nothing but positive memories.
Question answered. He still has the house. I would assume that means he still has the painting up in the house, too. Come on, Mitch. Come on, play it.
I thought he was going to play it out
I
of the
can't
sound.
play it. I'm sorry. I'm listening to the Mercury.
Oh, okay. That's
doing your actual job
fair.
in there.
I'm a Leo, so that's the symbolism there.
There you go. Look,
thanks, Kliff.
We'll talk.
Couldn't tell. Appreciate it. Interesting, Burnsy, that he was clearly watching the Cardinals still with the USC job.
Yeah,
said that as like maybe he went back and just watched tape, but I mean, he's the OC in Washington. Why would he need to do that? He was clearly keeping an eye on how things were going and seeing how Kyler was doing. How much of that was like just wanting to see Kyler succeed and rooting for him? How much of it was how is it going without me kind of stuff? It's interesting that he was watching.
His level of investment in this. I mean, Gambo and I talked about this a couple of days ago, and it's odd. It's odd having a conversation with somebody who's never been fired from a job before about being fired, but there is a certain emotional kind of catharsis that you go through when you've been fired by a company and how you feel about that company. And I was kind of curious how Kliff was processing all this and how he felt, and especially now that he was back. Look, one thing's for sure. So far through 3 weeks of the NFL, Kliff Kingsbury is riding high right now. He is commanding an offense, pardon the pun, that has gone 2 straight weeks without a punt and without a turnover. I mean, every single drive they've had the last 2 weeks that didn't result in a kneel down resulted in points. Every single one. So he's writing in here. His quarterback is the talk of the NFL right now. This offense just put on a show on national TV. Kliff's got some equity right now, right? Like he's got some chips in his stack at the blackjack table, if you will, which, look, this is a great way to frame this conversation. This is kind of, in some ways, familiar territory for Kliff, isn't it?
It absolutely is. So the Commanders right now, they're averaging 360 yards per game. We know how offense is down across the league and the production is down across the league. That's a number that is 6th in the NFL right now.
6th in the NFL in yards per game.
The Cardinals, by the way, are 7th now. That is probably inflated a bit by week 2, but with that being said, something to note there for the Cardinals. So I'm seeing all these headlines, and I'm seeing this praise for Kliff. I'm watching that Monday night game, and I'm thinking, Kliff looks great. This is great. Did he turn a new leaf? And then there was the back of my brain being like, wait a minute. Been here before. Hold on a second. We have seen Kliff's teams particularly perform well in the beginning parts of the season.
Such a good point.
And then in the back half of the year is when we start talking about, is he adapting? Why isn't he changing this? Why isn't he doing that? We're starting to criticize him more because now they're starting to lose more football games. So me, the degenerate nerd that I am, I went through all 4 years of his Cardinals tenure, and I got 2 numbers for you. That was their yards per game in the first 4 weeks of the season and then their yards per game for the rest of the year. So
Okay.
weeks 5 through 17 or whatever.
Okay, first 4 versus the rest of the season. Okay.
And I just got the difference for you. That's it. So in 2019, they actually improved as an offense. They got 21 yards per game better in that little stretch. You think about what that year was, how they were sort of kind of on the rise, sort of getting there, yada, yada. 2020 plus 19. So they were still kind of improving a little bit. Now, 2021, of course, everyone remembers that year. Now, that kind of went minus 88 yards per game. They were averaging 441 yards per game in the first 4 weeks of the season. That's when you guys are having your segments like, oh my gosh, is Kliff Kingsbury coach of the year? Is Kyler Murray an MVP candidate? All that kind of stuff. And then the rest of the season, that number dropped all the way to 353 yards per game. That was a minus 88 difference. So there was a huge drop off there that's undeniable. And then it was minus 34 in his last year, to be clear. First 4 weeks of the year, they were only putting up 350 yards per game as it is. So they weren't really lighting the world on fire at the start of that year. That's when the wheels really fell off in 2022. So all of this is to say, yeah, typically that's how it goes. Kliff Kingsbury's teams offensively, in terms of the yardage they produce, again, this is just one number, not trying to do the thing where PER represents how valuable a player is.
Yeah,
like, I'm not doing any
now
of
you're
that
getting
stuff.
really into the weeds with
I'm
that
not
stuff.
really doing that, but what I'm just trying to show is you have that general thought and you're like, wasn't it kind of like this? And then
Yeah.
I looked at the numbers and I was like, yeah, it was.
It's so funny. I'm so out of practice talking about Kliff that I really mean I'm so out of practice talking about him.
As a sports fan, you did the
that-
mental health thing. Of just,
that I almost forgot. Oh yeah, this is the thing about Kliff. And we talked about this for 4 years with Kliff. And we looked back at his Texas Tech teams. And not so much like the deep statistical dive that you did.
first half,
But
second half
right,
record.
Just the very simple, look how he does the first month and a half of the season, and look how his teams perform in the second half of the season. And it was almost like every single year, great, not so great, great, not so great, great, it got bad. And I'm like I'll say it again, I'm so out of practice with this. You jogging my memory with these numbers reminds me, oh yeah, that was always a thing with Kliff. That was always a talking point with him. And that's why the thing he's doing with this Washington offense. Look, I don't want to take a thing away from Kliff.
He's doing a fantastic job.
job
Right now.
But there is
Right now he is.
there's a sustainability issue here. You say right now, there's
Especially with the rookie quarterback.
Yeah,
Like, come on, like we got to be realistic
now,
here.
I do wonder if the thing that will be different is he's just an offensive coordinator and he's not a head coach. He was asked about his first year as just a purely play caller and how that's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun to take the year at USC and just kind of step back and be around Lincoln and be the good cop the entire year and then get back into it. It's been a good perspective change, and it's been a fun group. DQ does a great job with the staff and the culture, and so I'm really enjoying myself.
I think if there's any variable that can change this kind of career arc of Kliff Kingsbury, it's that. It's that, okay, you're not in charge of being the bad cop. You're not in charge of being the CEO of an organization. You're the play caller. You're the offensive coordinator. You get to go in the lab and have fun every single day.
And guess what? I think it's totally fair to expect some drop off here. They've been one of the best offenses in the league, again, with a rookie quarterback, and we've seen how that's gone for most parts of the league right now. To steal a point that you were making earlier in the season, you look at the Bills coming in. You're like, if there was a time to get him, this was the time to get him. You look at the Rams and their injuries. If there was a time to get him, you look at the Lions even, you were talking about that coming into the week. This is the first time where I feel the opposite, where
This is
actually the wrong time to get him because Jaden Daniels is grooving. Defenses haven't quite figured out what to do with him just yet. There isn't really a pinpointed way to stop what they're doing. I think by week 10, week 11, teams are really going to figure that out with this offense. But right now, they're still kind of adjusting and figuring out how to stop it.
Thanks for watching Burns and Gambo. Click to see more from the guys and hit the button in the middle to subscribe so you never miss a video from Arizona sports.